in the practice of awarding bonuses on price tag alone. That's kind of the subject today type thing. I've been considering looking at Deming's principles type thing because my blocks matched up to his principles type thing in related video search through YouTube. Welcome back to 1d8+1 Leonal Orbs. This is Chad Brown, and today I was going to try to use some blocks to form out some ideology type thing in that type of sense. So here we're going to look at without blocks type thing. I'm going to move my notebook type thing here, and we're going to look at the price tag of the amount of points type thing being equal to max type thing in a character sheet. That's from Pathfinder type thing there. Put that here and put that here type thing. And from that type thing in that type of sense, this is the maximum amount of points that you can spend out of 20 points type thing there. That's the maximum points allowed in there type thing at 20. And from there type thing, the 14 ability type thing there is what was considered maximum in AD&D type thing in that type of sense in that expenditure. But there's a 15 for 7 points, a 16 for 10 points, a 17 for 13 points, and an 18 for 17 points in your ability. Now it might change the rest of your non-essential abilities type thing, which are all abilities are essential. But if you're building a tumbler type thing in that type of sense, you might not put in strength or wisdom first type thing as your highest type thing, which I think for monk it's wisdom and dexterity type thing in that type of sense. You could do charisma type thing, sacrificing your dexterity type thing or keeping it even. Now in that type of sense, its maximum type thing could be at 4 type thing in that type of sense. You have to really kind of set your mind around that type of thing before setting out the price tag of what your character could or couldn't do. Now in that type of means, we're going to go to a character sheet type thing in that type of sense. From here, and put that there. In that type of thing here, and that's here, and that's here. I was trying not to make a multi-part video type thing, but now I'm already 2 minutes in. Yes. So in that type of thing, we're going to go here to page 157, and then that's a character sheet with its abilities right there. And from those abilities, I wrote them out in a character. That's strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma type thing for 6 abilities. And in those 6 abilities type thing in that type of sense, you have to decide which one in a balanced sense is going to get that 40 pounds, 20 pounds, 10 pounds, 0 pounds, and 30 pounds of a modifier type thing in that type of sense, which isn't really splendorifically adding on to itself type thing. So although some things like with glitter type thing in that type of sense off a weightlift of 200 pounds, it had glitter, a second component, plus the weightlifting of 200 pounds, which kind of given the adrenaline burst up to 400 pounds type thing in that type of sense. But it was really just a 200-pound weightlift type thing with glitter. So in that type of sense, they're not the same weightlift type thing or the same attributes. When you're spending differently, you can do different abilities type thing in that type of sense throughout your character and the adventure. Some other price tag type things are one type thing in that type of sense, the ability to look at the thaumaturgus type thing. And in that type of thing, that thaumaturgus type thing is what your planar ally type thing in that type of sense, and the summoned monster, and in that type of sense, the improved ally, or a planar cohort of the thaumaturgus type thing there. Now from that, in that type of sense, let's look at lesser planar ally, or what I'm talking about, the thaumaturgus in the book type thing in that type of sense. And from there type thing, that is the thaumaturgus type thing, the only person with a planar cohort ability, but that technically is not true. So now we're on page 196 type thing of the Dungeon Master's Guide, but if we go back to the player's handbook type thing, we can see other ways to bring in a person who can be an angel type thing in that type of sense, which is impossible. Now, in that type of sense, we go to page 261 type thing in that type of sense in the PHB. That's 261, which it isn't type thing in that type of sense. That's the player's handbook type thing in that type of sense, page 261. And in here type thing in that type of sense, that's one. That's the planar ally type thing right there type thing in that type of sense. And that's its lesser type thing. You go above it type thing right there, if I'm getting that right. That's the greater planar ally. And if you go over this column and go down type thing in that type of sense, from here, that is the planar ally regular type thing here. So let me get that there. And that's planar ally right there by itself. So in that type of sense, if you look at that, that's at 4th, 6th, and 8th level type thing in that type of sense for that capability type thing for the 6, 12, and 18 hit die type thing. And it's one task in exchange for payment for 1 minute, 100 per hit die of the creature. So, and payment for an hour type thing for a task is 500 per hit die type thing in that type of sense, which is also right. Now in that type of sense, from that you go back to cleric type thing, which is very complicated to do, and in that type of sense, there's your 4th level spell type thing. That's where that starts type thing, is a 4th level spell. But now here, that's 4th level spell type thing in cleric, going 4 down on this side here. That's the level type thing, and that goes to 20, which it does in type thing in that type of sense. And it does, and that's 4th type thing in that type of sense, and that goes over to a dash for 4th level spells. So now when I get my first 4th level spell, there's 1+1 there type thing, and that goes over to here in that type of sense, and that's 7th level type thing. So now in that type of sense, even though it says 4th level spell type thing, it's really 7th level cleric type thing in that type of sense. And you turn back to page 22 type thing, and that's 7th level type thing in that type of sense, and that's 21,000 experience when a person can cast 7th level type spell, a 4th level spell for a 7th level cleric type thing in that type of sense. So your book knowledge really doesn't correspond on an absolute one-for-one basis with your character knowledge type thing or character level. But that's something to keep in mind type thing. So now that's the planar ally type thing, and it's not associated with, that spell is not associated and dependent on being in a thaumaturgist class type thing. It's independent type thing. You can cast that as just a regular cleric without going into a prestige class, which is very difficult. And in that type of sense, we just looked it up, straightforward, 7th level cleric. Now that's improved ally type thing in that type of sense. That's in the DMG and the thaumaturgist type thing in that type of thing. And from there type thing, its improved ally is take spell focus conjuration and able to cast lesser planar ally to require to get into the prestige class. And from that, it takes a diplomacy with 50% payment for half type thing in that type of sense to do the same task that the planar ally did type thing as a spell in the book. Now also in that type of thing is the diplomacy skill set type thing in the player's handbook. From the diplomacy type thing, that's influencing NPC attitudes. But once again, notice across the top type thing in that type of sense, here we got there, in that type of thing, if there's less than 20 type thing, they stay hostile, and unfriendly difficulty to achieve is 20, 25 difficulty makes them indifferent, and a DC of 35 type thing, if their initial attitude was hostile, makes them friendly, and a 50 on the DC check type thing in that type of sense, when their initial attitude is hostile type thing, makes them helpful. So in that type of sense, that makes that a way different way of looking at that rather than the 24 of the diplomacy type thing or 21 type thing, making them automatically helpful type thing in that type of sense. Because that's not 50. 21 is not 50 type thing in that type of sense, which I guess it is. And so that's 50 type thing minus 21 type thing in that type of sense, and there's a difference of 29 in between those two values. So that's how much more modifier I think they come up with to make that character in a diplomacy and auto check type thing in that type of sense. Now, in that type of thing, there's one more technique. Summon monster type thing is also another method type thing in that type of sense, but a little bit more hidden. And so now we go to page 287 type thing in that type of sense, in the player's handbook, still same book, and in that type of thing, that's player's handbook type thing. And if you look here type thing in that type of sense, let me take this one here, if I can reach it type thing in time, and that's here. That's 4th level, that's a Lantern Archon type thing, and in that type of sense, that's a 5th level type thing, that's a Hound Archon. And if you go over here type thing in that type of sense, at 9th level, that's a Leonal Orbs type thing in that type of sense. So in that type of thing, from that, 4th level Archon, 5th level, and 7th level type thing at 7th, 9th, and 17th level cleric respectively type thing in that type of sense. But its payment's different. It has no pay schedule to it whatsoever. So in that type of sense, the spell summons an extraplanar creature or magical beast. It appears where you designate it and acts immediately on your turn. It attacks your opponents to the best of its ability. If you can communicate with the creature, you can direct it to attack particular enemies or to perform other actions. Spell conjures one of the creatures from the 1st level list or accompanying summon monster table. Now if you look at the summon 4 type thing, that's 4th level type thing to summon 4 here type thing in that type of sense. Spell functions like summon monster 1, except that you can summon one creature from the 4th level list, 1d3 creatures from the same kind from the 3rd level list, or 1d4 plus 1 creatures of the same kind from a lower level list. And from the planar ally type thing, and if you flip back to that type thing, that type of sense, which is hard to do type thing, that's here. I can't find that fast enough. MONOP type thing in that type of sense. That's, now you go through from the spell type thing, that's lesser planar, that's its block type thing. by creature type thing, and then that's the next paragraph. You may ask the creature to perform one task in exchange for a payment from you. The task might range from a simple type thing. Creature called requires a payment for a service. The payment can take a variety of forms. And a task lasting up to 1 minute per caster level requires a payment of 100 gold pieces per hit die of the creature called. For a task taking up to 1 hour per caster level, the creature requires a payment of 500 gold pieces per hit die. So you see how these spells were different, despite the fact that you could keep bringing in an ally type thing, like a Hound Archon type thing, which is in your monster manual. And in that type of thing, despite being the same hit die type thing, we're having less abilities in that type of sense of how cognitive a task that you can give that Hound Archon. It still has, in that type of thing, there's a Celestial Creature block, and in that type of thing, it has that method type thing in that type of sense. There's the Hound Archon, and that's its block right there, and that is 68 type thing, so it's 6 hit die type thing, the number before the D8, and then that would do that. Of other more bonuses type thing in that type of sense, let's go ahead and try to get that in there. And here, and that's page 71 type thing. That's dungeon encounters type thing in that type of sense. And that's traps type thing there, in there type thing in that type of sense. And from page 307 type thing in that type of sense in the DMG, the Dungeon Master Guide. From here, that's here, and here type thing in that type of sense. Those are areas, and different areas from the different effects of your spell when it hits at one individual, or if it hits a whole room of individual type thing in that type of sense of filled up volume. When that is now the Sorcerer Wizard chart type thing. Let's go here, and here, and that's here, and better be careful here. That's Sorcerer Wizard type thing, Sorcerer, and then Per and Wizard type thing, and then Spells type thing in that type of sense. And from here, that's Charges back in the DMG type thing in that type of sense. And from here and here type thing in that type of sense. And that's here, and that's here, and one more here type thing in that type of sense. And here type thing in that type of sense, that's Charges type thing here. And that's 65,000 in cost type thing. And that's its charges there. That's 1 charge type thing, that's charge. That's 2 charges, and that's 3 charges compared to a spell list memory. Now, from a spell list memory type thing, we go back here type thing in that type of sense, which you could do that for free type thing in that type of sense, if you just take Druid type thing in that means. Now, in Druid, from there type thing in that type of sense, there's special type thing in that type of sense. Let's see here, I've got 1 die type thing. That's special in that column type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of thing here, that is spells per day type thing in that type of sense. 1 and 2. So now in that type of thing, if I'm flying through that type of thing and I put all 5 levels here type thing in that type of sense, let's take here, and let's take this here, and this here, and this here, and this here type thing in that type of sense. And now I put this here, from here type thing in that type of thing. That's Wizard, that's Druid 1 type thing for 1, and that's 2. And that's 3 levels type thing, matching up with 3rd, 4, in that type of sense, and then 5 for 10,000 type thing in that type of sense. So at 5 and 10,000, Wild Shape, Resist Nature's Lure, Trackless Step type thing, Woodland Stride, and an Animal Companion, and for that same 10,000 experience, you still have to do your spells per day. Now in your spells per day type thing in that type of sense, which I don't think I can do, you can do in that type of sense, 1 first type thing in that type of sense, nope, I'm sorry, 5th level, 1 third, 2 seconds, and 3 first type thing, and add that into your character design along with your special abilities. Well, tried to explain all that in that much time. I'll try again some other time type thing. We'll look more at the price tag of building a character or taking options out of.